Now we've reached a point in our development with this project where we actually can fine-tune props. Now what I really want to thank Noel Drindak, who provided us with a few extra 14.5s. In fact, I think I got 6 of them. But he pitched each one, and if you notice, here's a significant thing when you buy 14.5 rev-ups, and this is true of all props, they're a half a pitch different from the same prop. Well, one of the things that I've noticed too, that the last few have been really out of balance too, is I need to drill this prop hole out to 5/16, and one of the problems has been, every once in a while one of the props will split like this when you drill it. So my suggestion is, if you're going to drill it, to drill it from the back to the front. So if a piece is missing up here, now what I'll probably do is put some aero epoxy light in there, something I don't want to, or I'll use this prop as the last one. But from this point on, we're going to check, and I assume these were a little bit better. Obviously I was wrong. These every one needs to be pitched, and we have a few that have one blade 4.5 and one 4.0. Well, it's just part of what we need to do to get our props sorted out. And we've been using a full 14-inch diameter down to about 12.5 and everything in between. It's worked well on the Max 70. I was drilling these out. If you were to drill from the front and it catches and splits the wood, you really don't want to have the back of the, well, I don't anyway. If it's going to pop a piece out, let it pop it out in the front. Another thing is I'm using a number drill, so it's a real nice tight fit on that shaft. And I'm trying to just run the drill in there real slow. Don't force the drill down through it. Now so far these 14.5 rev-ups, and they're hard to get, and thanks to Noel again. But like anything else, they need to be fine-tuned. Now we started out in the last week or so doing our little thing before the contest with full-size 14-inch diameter. That really taxes the motor quite a bit. We found that by bringing it down to 13 and about a half, it got real nice. About 13, it got to be where, well, I would be thinking we could pull more prop. But again, it's all in the personal taste. They seem to fly a nice load on the motor. Don't seem to hamper the corner at all. And they're about half the weight of any of the carbon props. We've got the equivalent, almost an exact equivalent in carbon. Problem is, this is really a heavy prop, and since these motors are heavy to begin with, it's marginally worth having the extra weight of the prop. But what this does allow us to have is infinitely tunable pitch, and what we've done is married it up to various other props that Noel's done, and we do these an inch from the tip. He's got some, now these I haven't drilled out because we want to use these for the YS. Joe wanted to have a couple of spare props for the YS testing. But you can see every one of these is just a little bit different. There's no set pattern when you get them. And even if you go through, and I've taken some of these and I've marked which are which, we'll save these for the YS. I marked this as one I used at the Nat, so I know this is pretty close to being what I want. And that was 13 inches for a Tiger 60, but this engine seems like it's happy pulling even more than that if we wind up needing it. This one I had underpitched. I marked it slow. This might be more appropriate for another ship, the YS or whatever. But what I'm going to try to do is get all my props in order here, certainly all balanced, and then save these ones that have a chip out of them, try to do a little quickie repair. But then the next thing is to figure out what diameter is going to be really our first choice. And I really feel like we've closed in on that in the last test session too. When they're full 14, they're absolutely stump pullers. Somewhere around 13, well, they're good, but they're not great. But it's in that 13 to 14 inch range, right at the very end. And I don't know, I'm going to leave them all full size for now. And when we go to the next meet, have a choice of maybe 13 and a half, 13 and 14. And this way I can try them under different air conditions. But this is the significant thing, is just how different they all are when you buy them. And I remember a lot of times, and this is true, we were doing Tiger 60s with rev-up props. You'd cut them all up, balance them, in some cases paint them, And you'd put one on a plane, it would go flat. One on a plane, it would go like a jet plane. Well, this is the reason. Well, President Nixon of RevUp calling on a phone. Thing about these props, they really aren't balanced when you buy them by a long shot. I have been really careful about checking each one, because don't forget they're going in a 15-year-old plane. And the point is, I want to use the same props. I want to do comparisons with the laser. I want to do the laser 70 versus the Mac, because ultimately one of these planes has to become the Typhoon power plant. But these props are, I guess they're made on old machinery or something. You really never can tell. We've learned so far with all our testing was the best prop so far, this is for the OS Max 70, is the 14.5 RevUp in some various diameter from 13 to 14. Excellent. We've also used, and this would probably be a tie as to what would be the second choice, the 13.5 BY&O Rodak prop would be probably choice 2. And choice 3, which is one I really want to pursue further, is the 4-blades. Now we had an APC 4-blade, and we had a Bali 4-blade, and I also have a Brian Ether 4-blade I haven't tried yet. But the 4-blades, they give us even the option of having a plane look a lot more scale. And when we do a Typhoon or any semi-scale plane, you really, if possible, you'd like to be able to use that at least for some of the conditions. But we really have come, this information, if you're doing a Max 70, this will save you about 5 gallons of testing to figure this out. And these props at various diameters, they're pulling a plane anywhere from, I'm going to guess, from 60 ounces to over 70. They run real well in the range that the OS 70 likes to run in. And I'd say that range starts at about 9,500 and goes to 10.5. It's in that range that it's real comfortable and real powerful and very, very consistent, easy to tune. Is something that even I didn't realize right in the very beginning. The fuel with 4 strokes seems to be a lot more critical than I imagined. I used up a case of 15% nitro, 15% oil. It's the fuel that's blue. I used my whole first case up. Then I started using the 10% nitro and the 22% oil. This is the GMA, the clear fuel. Well, it seems like 2 things happen. This fuel, it burns a little more fuel. It burns the full 4 ounces of fuel doing a pattern, but it certainly makes a lot more power. This fuel still runs real consistent. I was real happy with that. The one fuel I wasn't happy with, I tried some 5%, won't mention the brand name. We'll leave it here so we don't get anybody mad at us. But 5% fuel, really, I couldn't get it to run in any of the 4 strokes the way I was happy with so far. Now, the one thing I have had real good, now Joe Adamusco's had good success, they make a fuel, there's all PowerMaster fuel, by the way. It's special fuel for YS's that's 20% nitro and 20% oil. And I think ultimately that's what we're going to wind up with. This fuel, by the way, is pink. I think the special YS fuel, I think, is going to ultimately, when we finish work with the YS, we're going to wind up using that probably in other 4-stroke applications, possibly the Typhoon, don't know. But by eliminating the fuel now, the only person I've ever heard that's really had problems with 4 cycles, people using some kind of either not enough nitro or a brand of fuel where you don't know what the real ratios are. But if you're using PowerMaster, any one of these 3 choices, I think you're going to have nothing but consistent runs. Anticipating, and Bill Hummel right now is anticipating this, what I call a candidate for a 4-stroke retrofit. It would be any plane, wouldn't matter what size it is because they make all different sizes, but a plane that typically was a little bit tail heavy, because the little bit of extra weight is probably not going to be a factor. You'd have to, even if you had a 2-cycle engine, you'd have to put nose weight on it, so why not just put an engine? So we may have an extra plane in the weekend coming up. Bill has a test plane that he's real unhappy with because it's too tail heavy. And I said, boy, if there's one cure for a tail heavy plane is put an OS Max 70 in it. Things that seem to help when you do a conversion, and on mine, of course, I've already got the hinge lines taped before you even fly the plane, because you're going to be carrying more weight and generating more lift and more dynamic forces there. And I always try to use the biggest prop that the engine really realistically will turn. Now, this is not true with tuned pipe engines and other packages. You really don't want to use the biggest prop because you don't get that real crisp 2-4, whatever you want to call it, motor run brake. With 4 cycles, I think that the key is put the biggest prop the motor is comfortable turning on there, tape the hinge lines, and if you build a plane, obviously shorten the nose an inch or half an inch, and I think you could wind up with a very, very predictable, easy to trim package right out of the box. Speaking about our candidate, if you were to purpose design a plane, what I've calculated out is that the motor itself needs to go from 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch higher in the plane. Now this is because, first off, you don't need this big belly for a pipe, assuming that's what you're doing. And by raising a motor, you're going to pick up 2 benefits. A short nose a little bit higher up here will balance the plane. You'll get the vertical CG right without adding or taking away any weight. And by having the prop closer to the wing, now I need to find out the real aerodynamic formula for this. Bill Netspan probably knows it. By moving the prop an inch closer to the wing, I'm sure it tends to eliminate some of the GP you have. Because any plane I've ever had that's had a real long nose always had a terrible GP problem you had to deal with by making a prop smaller and smaller and smaller. In this case, we have the best of both worlds. We can use a bigger and bigger and bigger prop, turn the plane into a helicopter, and get that prop up against the wing. So there's a benefit within a benefit there if it's all designed properly. Of course, our ultimate design goal, the reason we're doing all this testing is we'd like to ultimately have relatively semi-scale. You can see how scale this would be. With the motor moved up high, you'd have all this side area. In essence, the wing would be a little bit lower. Nice long landing gear with big wheels for flying at the circle burner field. A giant scoop and area to hide all the valve covers and Ducati carburetors and everything that have to go in there. Short nose, you'd only need about a 4-ounce tank. Again, nice proportional side area. Kind of a nice look, I think. Kind of a nice looking plane overall. And the option of using scale 3 or 4 bladed props. And paint jobs, a lot of nice paint jobs to choose from. Remember who emailed me, but I got an email the other day from somebody who said, yeah, I like the Typhoon, but I'd much rather have a radial engine version. Well, this is the late model Tempest, which is a very similar plane. Kind of a nice looking rudder, probably something that would make an Al-Rabe kind of a stunt plane out of this, but we have our own variation of this. I kind of like the one with the big scoop. This would even make a nice rare bear. This is the one paint job. I think Dennis Adamison used this paint job already on his Typhoon. It's a target toe. It's yellow and black stripes on the bottom. It's one of the things that's, would be kind of original, but I'm still looking for other very unique variations of this. There's plenty. The Indian Air Force happens to be one of them that use Typhoons. A lot of variations, a lot of choices. One project I'm really excited about. Now today, joining us on our test session is, looks like a female deer. Looks like 2 female deer. If there's 2 female deer, where is the male deer? Oh, there's the male deer. Nope, 3 female deer. Anyway, one day we have geese, one day we have deer. I guess there's some days you just can't win. About today, we really had a terrible test day as far as the air goes. You just couldn't get 2 flights the same with the air blowing left, blowing right, up, down. Didn't pay to even videotape any of it, but boy, we've been waiting out the wind, and it's to the right, it's to the left. And I really don't want to lose this plane. We really are learning some valuable stuff from this, as all our test pilots go take turn after turn after turn flying it. Without the help of my illustrious test crew here, none of this would be possible. Yeah, it's really not a good day to even be flying out here where this air is. Wow. Anyway, I'm going back to the shop drive. You guys want to keep the plane? Is Mike going to keep the plane? Did he say, well, all right, I'll ask him when he comes down, because I got work to do. When I got here this morning, there was some deer on the field. They volunteered to judge if you guys wanted to do some practice. Anyway, we ain't getting a whole lot done. This air is the kind of day you're better off at the shop making belt cranks or something. The thing about a test day like today is the ride home. Oh, this air, man. Look at that flag. Every time that flag moves, the plane is moving. Yesterday was such a waste. Oh, air. So what I did, look at how wet this grass is. I'm just looking at that. Got out here nice and early. We got the YS. This will be the first day we actually, I hopefully get some flights on it. Always we're up before the chickens hatch. Feed peeps and get out to the field. Now the YS is totally different. It has a fuel pump. It has some kind of a little air chamber that I call a supercharger. I've had to make up a little gizmo because you're not supposed to start the motor at full throttle, so I leave it at a little bit faster than idle, start it, bring it up to speed, and then needle it. That's worked well so far. I'm starting this. This engine has a little bit less than an hour runtime. It still has the baffle and the muffler. It has the stock exhaust system. Totally stock out of the box. I have the filter and the pressured valve that they give you with the engine. I wound up figuring that I'd start with this prop for a day of flying. The only problem is see how little ground clearance there is? And I don't have a whole lot of these. These are 14.5s. This was just a prop I figured we'd start doing a test fly. Early in the morning here, it's cool. But one of the things I wanted to do, and I talked to this fella Ron from the hobby shop who runs YNSs, and he said a good idea is burn a whole gallon of 2-cycle fuel in there, and then convert over to YS. It's 20 fuel, 20% nitro, I mean, the YS fuel, and 20 nitro. I'm going to start off the day until we finish up the better part of this gallon, and this has 22% oil, and then convert over to the YS fuel. This is special YS fuel. Again, I'm at the bottom of the learning curve with this motor. I want to get used to the way it needles. I've got the needle valve coming out this side, which is really, really convenient. I'm not saying, I don't know what that does for the fuel draw, but it's got the all the fuel lines coming out, the fuel injector in the front, and it's gonna. I don't expect this to be a 1 week or a 2 week thing getting this dialed in. The Max was relatively easy to dial in except for the tank shim. When you get the two things right, the tank shim and the stock 14.5, it's just a question of throttling where you want to fly. Now this I expect to be a whole lot different. This engine has a lot more, well, moving parts, potential, fuel pumps, all kind of things that may or may not be appropriate for what we want to use it for, but Joe Adamusco has one. He's going to try to be here later this week. What we're going to try to do today is just burn fuel so that we can have plenty of time on the engine by the time we start to try to do stunt patterns with it. As proven over the years, this plane was made in 1992, so it's about an 8-year-old plane. Still flies relatively well. It's in the low 60s, maybe 62, 63 with this engine. We're going to have before the week's out, the optional header that Hattori makes for this engine. But for right now, the idea is everything is box stock the way you buy it. Now one of the advantages I have by getting out here real early in the morning like this is it's cold. When I get here, it's relatively cold, so what will happen is the engine will be braking in or doing its level flight runs on a relatively cool, I hope. Anyway, whoo, that pressure is really in there.
Anyway, this takes a little bit of different, and I don't have a setup yet. I'm going to try to figure it out. The tank is under a lot of pressure. When you take, after a run, when you take that cap off, it's like, you know, under a lot more pressure than a normal engine is. So what I came up with, and this is really a pretty crude system, but seems to work. After bench running it, I ran it on the ground many times, but I still don't have a gallon of fuel through it. Now, when you run it on the test bench, it runs about 12 minutes on 6 ounces of fuel, this fuel. With the higher nitro, that's going to go up, so I'm anticipating we're going to ultimately need a 4-ounce tank. What I'm hoping to do very soon is have my Wayne Triven is going to loan me the carbon fiber tooling to make some tanks, and the first thing I'll do is make a tank for this plane, because that'll get rid of some of the nose weight. This engine is a little bit heavier. It's a little heavier than the Jet 60 that was in here by about 1 ounce. But when you figure all the fuel, the less fuel, and the weight of the pipe, and all the other paraphernalia, it's not something that's appropriate to even think about is the weight. You got to get it in a plane, fly it, and then decide if if it's going to be the way you want it or not. Now, going strictly by the directions, this is what they tell you to do, and it's worked well on a test bench. I don't know about the plane. You want to put the throttle at idle, crank this over 10 times, which is 20 revolutions. And that pressurizes the pump, pressurizes the tank. Put this on back compression. I don't expect one flip starts today, but what I want to do is I want to learn about the character of the engine, especially when we start using the real fuel that we're going to be using. For right now, I just want to get the plane in the air and get runtime, get at least another hour of runtime on it. Well, we've got about enough break-in run on this now. I'm ready to start trying some props, and then after I get a prop that I really think is going to work right, try that YS fuel. This certainly runs forever on. I'm sure this is going to wind up with a 4.5 ounce tank, maybe a 3.5. But if I can make the carbon tank, that'll get even another ounce and a half out of the nose. The next prop I want to try is a 12.5 rev up. I want to get some runs on this. I also have some BY&Os, and hopefully before the day's over we can even get, we had this on the 70 and it ran real nice. This is an APC, an 11.6 blade. I guess that's what it is. That's what it says anyway. Jim Damarell donated this prop to our development close, but for right now, I know this is one of the props we used in the break-in. It had a nice run character with this prop. I want to get some flights with this prop. Now this prop, you know, showed some potential. It flies nice and slow, but it loads the motor. This is, again, remember, this is only a 53. This is really maybe a 60 prop. I don't know.
See, this is what I need to find out at the end of the day, is get the prop load right. When the prop load is too low, the motor is just spinning like a pipe motor. When it's too high, it sags and maneuvers. I need to find that mid-ground. The only way I'm going to do it is by checking several props.
Things with any new engine, and I don't care what engine it is, if it's new, whenever you're trying to develop something, a lot of people misunderstand, and they think, oh, why don't you just use this engine or that engine? Oh, that runs great, this runs great. Yeah. Well, in our case, it's like the best of all worlds. We have some Tiger 60s mics, for instance, that runs really nice. We have some big Jim motors that run real well. We have some George Aldrich motors. We have some Jets that I think run as good as anything in the world. But it's always nice to have more. It's like you just get greedy after a while. And because I think when we do the Typhoon, I think it'll be just a little bit nicer if it sounds like a 4-stroke, and no matter what I do with the 2-strokes, they still sound like 2-strokes. And I have made a lot of mufflers and exhausts and pipes, and if this doesn't pan out the way we want, obviously we just go back to the 70, we can go back Tiger 60, we can go back to the Jet, we can go back to our high school sweetheart here, there's no problem. But now that we have some time on these props, I want to mark them with a marker too. Which ones have already been on a plane, which ones show some promise, which ones show no promise at all. Another thing, because we don't flip the prop on this, we don't have to be concerned with another thing that usually is a pain, is getting the prop on top dead center. What I'm trying to do is just get the prop that it stops right for the landing. And I don't know where that point is yet, so it's not even going to pay to worry about it right now. They always have a locking system. I think all the 4-strokes I've seen have a locking system, and I always would recommend using automotive wrenches. In fact, in my case, the spinner nut even acts like a triple locking nut. Maybe that's overkill, I don't know. Now it seemed like that the 14.5 that was cut down was a little bit high on prop load. And before we start doing stunt patterns or doing maneuvers or doing anything, I'd like to get the load a little more to where I'd like it.
The props one by one, the ones I want to test, I'll lay them out on the table and make little notes in my book. Just roughly, for instance, this one seemed to have a high prop load. It was turning around 94, 9500, but I could hear that the motor was working real hard on our 10% fuel. Now that could change. We almost have to do this test twice. When we go to the YS fuel, that may be a whole different ball game, but for right now the motor I just think is too new to start really pushing it. And the thing with all this testing is once we find one, then we can help Joe with his YS, or Pete Bergstrom has a YS. Other people that are doing the same thing, maybe we can save them some of the time. So only one person has to do this and get it right. And once you have that formula that's working well, like I feel we have the formula for the Max pretty well in hand, well, this one I know is going to be a little trickier. I know it's a little more sensitive. It's a higher revving engine. It's a little more sensitive to prop load. Don't know if it has the potential yet, but again, you're not going to know unless you do the test.
rev up at 10.4.
Gone through the first batch of props, and I think it's time to start running some of that 20% fuel and see. Yeah, I wanted to leave that needling on because it's very critical to the needle with 10% fuel. I mean, it's one click in and it's ready to go to the races, and one click out and it wants to start idling. So what the people have told me about this is that the 20% fuel seems to give it more needle range, and we'll find out in the next couple of flights. I want to see roughly how much different the needle setting is and the RPM with the YS fuel. It's hard to get used to having that glow plug on an angle. We're going to have to richen this up quite a bit. RPM with that fuel. Now I can see one thing right off the bat. Mike's getting some flights in here to give me a rest. The 20% fuel cut the mileage right in half, which we expect. And we really need a lot less prop pitch than what we have here. But what we really need, and I don't have it right at the field here, I need to have a way of, see, this is running at full throttle now. I need to have a way of running it like the other engines at about 2/3 throttle. Now Mike, of course, is, the handle is too big for this plane right now. We don't have a real setup tuned in, and I know he's going to be bouncing it all over the sky, but that's okay. He's okay. I know I'm going to need to spend the day coming up with some kind of gizmo to adjust the throttle on this, because right now I'd like not to have to take the prop pitch out. And we still have that little baffle that's in the muffler. I can hear it. It almost sounds like it's rattling around like a pipe motor in there. I'm going to try in the next couple of flights, getting rid of that baffle, see if that makes any positive difference. You don't have to worry about trying pipe pressure and no muffler pressure or any of that, because there is no muffler pressure. And on this engine, there's no crankcase vent either. So we're dealing with some new stuff, just trying to, well, I don't expect we'll get this in a week or two, but a lot to learn, and it's one of the things I always enjoy is the learning. But the biggest thing I'm going to learn today is how critical that fuel, that YS fuel, is a giant difference than running 10. Obviously, it's twice the nitro. Runs totally different. And all the fuel we've used so far is from PowerMaster, so we can kind of figure out exactly what we want to have in terms of that. But the one thing, it doesn't look like the tank shim is a critical issue here. That's nice, but again, we need to be able to adjust the throttle, and I can't do that right now. All I can do is run it wide open. The stopgap to not having a throttle, I'd like to, I made up a prop that has a little bit less pitch in it. It's an AHM. It has a little stopgap measure and it's not working out. I have a little gizmo with the rubber band holding the throttle shut on the idle screw. Pretty much similar to the 70, but I have a feeling that's not going to be the way we want to do this. We can control it this way. We want to have something positive like a set screw. Well, and we need a little bit of pitch out of the prop before we can go on any further. A little rubber band throttle adjuster, unfortunately, is not as accurate as I'd like it to be. I've just been using the idle set screw and using this to apply pressure. What I'm going to do, I'm going to wait till I get home today to do it. I have another one of those half-A springs, and I'll basically replicate what I have on the other plane. The only option it's not giving me is I can't do it while the engine's running. I have to basically fly the plane and decide if I want to go faster or slower, which is a little bit inconvenient. Now, one thing we can deduce from this, the throttle adjustment is a lot more critical than on the 70. On the 70, one turn is about a tenth. On this, it's about a half a turn is a tenth. I guess the throttle adjustment, the way it's laid out, is threads are just opening and shutting the throttle quicker or whatever. Anyway, we are getting the time on the motor, and that's what we really want, because before we really can push this, and I hope Saturday will be that day, we need to get a good throttle adjuster, some props with a little bit less pitch, and another gallon of YS fuel. Mel's got his P-38 flying while we're doing our test, and obviously you can't even hear the motor run with this guy running. flights Mike and I flew, we had the muffler off just to see what happened. Let's see if Mel's done here. Sometimes the P-38 can be exciting to land. Sometimes, yeah, it looks like he's got it in nice now. Anyway, what we did, Mike got a couple of flights without the muffler. I got a couple of flights. I like that the fact it doesn't have that nose weight in there too. That helps. But it definitely is louder. You definitely pay a penalty. I didn't keep track of the mileages. The mileage is worse with the muffler. Worse, yeah. Well, let's try this. Now, one of the things we have with this, we can put the muffler closer. I had it real close. Let's put it way out on the end and see if we come up with something in between what we had.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
I've run it without the baffle, that little baffle. You can see right through it now. But just putting this a little bit, I had that tube all the way in. I think I had it in too far. But let it hang out just a little bit further. See if that makes any difference. It's relatively loud without it, and really quiet with it. So somewhere in between we have to figure, or maybe we can open up that back end just a little bit. But the biggest thing we need is to get a precision, no rubber band throttle adjusted. I'm afraid that rubber band's going to break in flight. But anyway, it's getting us through a test day. Before we had this all the way up here, but you could leave this. I guess you catch 3 or 4 threads and that's it. It's just going to stick out of the plane further. And we could also point it down just a little bit, keep some of the oil off the plane. Another thing, before this whole test thing is over with, I want to try just running. Warren Walker's getting me some of that red tubing that doesn't melt. Just run a piece of that red tubing out on the end of this. Sometimes that'll quiet it down. Right about there, we'll try it. Sticking much further out the body. We're looking for some kind of a compromise here too. But what I should have done, and I didn't, is figure out how far away from the body I want that, and then cut off the extra tube so it's only in the amount of threads that are in the aluminum. It actually would save weight that way too. Knock another 1/4 ounce off the plane. Thing we're going to test before we get back to the shop. We're going to get a couple flights on a BYNO 12.5, which looks like it might be one of the props we'll wind up with here. But we're going to have to dig out the gear without the wheel pants because we're really low on prop clearance. Anything bigger than 12-inch, and I suspect this engine is going to need a much bigger propeller by the time we're done, so that's going to limit our testing for today. And we got most of the 12 inches tested. Not a whole lot different between them. There's a nice wide range, but before we go any further, we've got to fix that throttle adjuster. That's the killer right now. Okay, now I've been splicing in, especially while I'm working in the shop here, watching this RC scale video over and over again. A lot of good information. Most of all, check this out. Look at this. Oh, yes, yes. Anyway, I've been trying to put a couple minutes of E at the end or the beginning or somewhere, but right now I'm just watching it over and over again. A great video. Just a lot of cool stuff. This was loaned to me by Dwayne Rothman, but just seeing that Typhoon in there. Hey, Typhoon, Typhoon. Now, it's certainly been nice having the wheel pants on, but the wheel pants limit us to a 12-inch prop. So the first thing I want to do, I have a set of what I call grass gear. These are the problems that I've had already because I don't have a real cowling for this, and I've been picking up a lot of junk out of the filter here, cleaning it over and over again. I see it's still got some stuff in it. We'll clean that all out before we have our next test session, and we're hoping to meet Joe Adamusco down there. Thing we learned today, don't make this stub too short. Or if you do, cut some off. That shouldn't protrude into the muffler anymore, and that was just an oversight on my part. The little baffle that goes in here didn't get any louder without the baffle. The motor just made more power. Those were just a couple of the things we learned. We also learned that a 12-inch prop probably is going to be too small, and we want to start the next test day with 13.5 rev up. Well, we're learning a lot about it. And the main thing I want to do is come up with some better way other than this rubber band for adjusting that throttle. So those are the little projects I want to work on right now. That little throttle adjuster was a temporary at the field fix, and I wasn't happy with it. And if you can't adjust the throttle, it kind of defeats one of the advantages you might or might not have with a 4-stroke. Well, we're going to come up with something a little bit And I'm looking at a lot of different ways of doing this. I'm hoping somebody comes up with some miracle cure that I haven't thought of. Because you really need to be able to, in essence, open and shut the carburetor. I have this apart too. I'm going to replace all the tubing. There's a couple of spots on here where it looks like the tubing was starting to wear through. I don't want to take any chances that I'm going to have a problem. I have a whole roll of this tubing, thanks to Mike. And in the case of the YS, even a small pinhole, and it's a giant problem. Well, I took this right off Zambelli's little email list from Hawkins. And I thought, well, let's give it a try. And you just have to rebend the tangs, but basically you can see that just fits right on there. A lot nicer and neater than the rubber band system I had. Now, as I release this spring, I'm opening and closing the throttle, and the spring is given just enough tension. So and I won't have that big bolt sticking out the side of the plane either. So that's another plus thing here. Anyway, that's from Hawkins, and that works perfectly. Now, in today's mail, and believe me, I am speechless. This is, I don't know. If there's one more guy named Dixon in the whole world, I'm gonna die. This is from Dr. John Dixon. Sends a nice letter. Look at what I have. Oh, it's a real pilot's notes for the Typhoon. Now, I mean, I don't know if, you know, obviously he's from England, but I don't know how to thank him. I'm going to have to send him something. He knows we're building Typhoons. Hey, Bert, I'm going to build a Typhoon around you. Get out of the way. He's eating sheetrock knives. Look at some of these notes. See, now it would be scale with a 3-blade or a 4-blade. A scale with this kind of hatchback canopy. Oh, man. This is the kind of stuff that makes doing a semi-scale model just a little more fun than doing a straight liner. Undercarriage warning light, wheel brakes. Oh man, this has definitely got to be read cover to cover. Flying acrobatics. Oh, look at this. All your normal acrobatics are easy to perform. Oh. Not recommended. Sabre 2 engine. Anyway, if you have any love of semi-scale models, look, here's the control. Oh, look at this, all the fuel plumbing and tubing, and John, I have to tell you, I am definitely impressed. This is the kind of stuff that makes, I don't know how to say it, that makes semi-scale planes just worth the extra effort. I spoke to Lyle Larson, and Lyle Larson, of course, if you remember from the Nats videos, did all of the now every plane in the pylon event is a Lyle Larson composite plane because they're so easy to build. Well, we're working in that direction. Obviously, he's years ahead of us, light years ahead of us. But he sent me the whole collection of his videos. Now these are the ones for building a pylon racer. I'm going to go through here and just try to see if there's anything we can use. This is obviously. Yeah, some people miss the whole point. Is we're trying to up the bar. Well, if you don't try to up the bar, I don't know that you ever can. I wasn't going to mention this until later on in the year when we start the Typhoon, but it's possible I can get somebody's help right now. What I want to do, I want to try to use, if it's legal and if it's possible, to use that system that the scale guys use to control the throttle in flight. Now, one of the things that would do is, obviously, you could control the speed of the overhead 8, open the throttle wide open. Think of the possibilities. You're in inverted flight, it's going a little fast, close the throttle a little bit. Imagine the takeoffs and landing. Now, my friend, the semi-scale master here, Gerald Champ, I'm hoping he's going to have some ideas for us, some feedback. We still have your Mustang, by the way, Gerald. We haven't forgotten about you, Gerald and Tammy, But the thing is, to think if you ever could make this work, that you could, in the middle of the flight, slow it down, let's say for the round loops you could go real slow. Hey, you want to go fast on the overhead 8, or any combination of top of the vertical 8 and hourglass, you want to just wide open the throttle. See, it's possible because we're only running the motors really at about 2/3 throttle, so it makes that possible. Anyway, we're going to think about Fred Cronwet is supposed to be the, talked to Milk Graham today, and he said Fred Cronwet is the world's leader in that technology. Some of the guys in our club have it, but I don't know if they're going to be that helpful. Example, just imagine right here, you want to close the throttle a third, come by with some 7-second laps in inverted flight. How would that be? Think of the landing. You could land it with the motor at idle, roll it around on those big Typhoon gear, get it right in front of the judges, drop the tail wheel. Tell me, there's a lot. This will give me a lot of things to think about if we can ever make this work. Problems with all dreams and all things that you envision is you have to do them. And it takes hundreds and hundreds of hours of work. Now, just working on these 4-cycle engines, getting comfortable with them ahead of time, I hope it's going to give me a little heads up. The carbon fiber wing mold is almost ready for Midgley to bring down. The Nomex flaps prototypes are basically done, except for the fact we don't have the lightweight Nomex to make actual usable parts. But like Gary Levitz, who was a visionary, saw into the future, and now we know there's a Martin Baker replica coming. Boy, I'll tell you, this will be a proud product. If we can make that work, though, I could just imagine. Now, I'm not saying you can make it work, and I'm not saying it's the only dream I've ever had, but I've thought about it for a while, and I thought I'd, at the beginning of the Typhoon project, mention it. Miss Ashley didn't happen overnight. The carbon fiber fuselage didn't happen overnight, but now we know we can basically make real light carbon fiber fuselages at will. And the next step on this, I mean, just imagine, I just can picture what that would look like. A takeoff, idle, bring the motor up a little, roll it on the gear, pick the tail wheel up. But see, you have to dream it, and not only dreaming it, you have to put the hours in to make it come true. Like Al Rabe, you have to force yourself to make the dream come true sometime. Now, just think if the Sea Fury had a throttle control. Me, oh my. I mean, I just can't even imagine what that would have been like. Just imagine if you could roll these takeoffs and landings. And just go for just imagine right around the overhead 8, you say, okay guys, full throttle. Wind spool up another third of power. And I don't think this would really be appropriate for 2-cycle engines, is because you basically, you run them at full throttle all the time. Well, I don't know, you could dial in another third of power. Maybe you could with nitro or something, but I don't know. But I know the 4-cycle engines running with a 2/3 throttle, you go for the overhead 8 and you could dial up, and imagine a Seafire here with a throttle control. I mean, I'm already dreaming this stuff. Like all the people that went before me, all the people in aviation, period. If you didn't dream some of these dreams, guaranteed none of them would come true. You got to have that dream. And I have the dream. I'm going to fight the rest of this season out to try to get as best a motor run as I can on a 4-cycle. And I'm going to be dreaming of ultimately, though, if it all pans out and if it's legal by the rules, and if I can enlist some of the world's experts. See, that's the hard part. I like to work on a team. I don't really like to work alone and and fithem and fathom. I'd rather be on a winning team. The day ever comes that we make it a reality. Hey, we've made other things a reality, and that carbon fuselage is one of them. Seafire sliding canopy is another one. Just things that I've really, little modeling projects I've really taken pride in. But hey, just imagine the old I-beam Spitfire. If you could just close that throttle, pick up the tail wheel, and take off. Anyway, I would appreciate anybody, and I've put it out on Zambelli's column several times. I will put it out in Stunt News. Anybody that can come up with a legitimate gizmo, something that we might be able to use, and I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'm sure going to give it a shot. I'm sure going to try to talk to a lot of people and come up with an idea, and maybe set this Typhoon into the future of stunt, where maybe more than one plane, maybe they'll even use it. Other people will decide to use it. Boy, I'd love to see Billy Werwich's P-47 with a throttle control. Wow. Walker's B-17. I mean, think of some of the things, but you got to dream the dreams, and you got to make all the dreams come true. I know old Harold Price had a dream at one time, and his dream was that he was going to teach me how to finish and make me make me the mediocre finisher of the year or something in 1958, whenever. But it seems to have worked, and if Harold were alive today, I think he had envisioned retracts that worked off a vacuum motor. Well, Harold, I'm following in your footsteps. I'm dreaming about throttle controls, dead reliable. I will really be looking forward to, well, I hope making some of this work, but we're certainly going to find out. It's good to see that one of my other dreams that, well, not a dream, but something I thought of years ago, actually in the early 90s, late 80s, was I'd like to have a Super Tiger 60 on a pipe, have it competitive. Mike is still using that motor in his new Cardinal. Same header, that's the same header that's on that plane. Same header, same motor, new pipe. And we still have people flying this green plane. It's still flying at contests, it's still in service. I don't know, I guess that's part of a dream that's already come true. Well, we're here so early that actually the field is soaking wet. Well, we have to deal with here from the rain. Anyway, Joe Adamusco is supposed to stop by today and supposed to do some work with the YS, but the field really looks messy. It's wet. You got boots. That grass is wet, Joe. You need your RAF boots here in the morning. When it's cold this morning, it's damp, puddled. Here in the RAF Stadium, actually the first day this year we're wearing coats and jackets and mud boots. Yeah, you got your boots on. All right, Mr. Awesome. Mr. YS. Yeah, Ron said he'd stop by around 9, take a look at these. Ron is pretty knowledgeable about YS's. Oh, it looks nice. Boy, that fit right in there.
Yeah. Did you have to gouge a big hole?
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
But I'm picturing if this thing works out like a little covered cap plate with a couple little small screws with a you know, you could do a lot of different things. But I've got holes in here.
Did you run it in the plane yet?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. Adventure time.
My plug is tight too. I made
plug
sure
is tight. Is this coming from Mr. Glow Plug over here?
And I tried to not grind it up so bad that I couldn't return it to.
Now, how do you have it set that you can open and shut the throttle?
Right here. So twist it.
Oh, so you have it on like a
full close.
Okay, you can close it. Yeah. That was funny, that email I got from you. I couldn't start the engine. I burned my batteries out. I'm thinking, Jesus.
See this with that slot in there, and I mean,
yeah.
What it means is that's like low throttle.
Okay. Oh, you'll know when you open the throttle. You'll know which way. You'll know right away.
I had a good time with this on the.
Yeah. Now this, what I did with mine was wrong. This, I made this too short. How many threads did you put this on? In other words, that tube was going too far into the muffler.
Well, it's in there pretty good.
And I took this tip.
So did I. This is
out. Goodbye.
But I've run this with nothing.
Yeah.
No baffle. Baffle.
Right.
And I can. This is too loud with nothing.
Yeah, it's loud.
And the baffle really.
Yeah, the baffle kind of cooks
So we'll see.
All right.
And it's tight, and I'll test run it here, but.
Yeah, well, let's go over to the fed and run it on the ground.
Actually, I didn't bring the cowling because.
Nah, you don't need the cowling.
But the cowling, I got it all ground out. It fits right in, but I got to reinforce it now.
Let me see how you have this.
I want you to tell me what you did for a fuel tank.
I got your gas tank in there, a regular Taffner.
Well, see, the thing is that.
Well, Taffner, I don't know.
Wait a minute. The fuel pickup is coming out. Is this in this corner?
Okay.
But the fuel draw on the engine's on the inboard side. So my vent, I had to build a special tank. My vent.
Oh, I just crossed the tubes. Just cross them up at the front.
Well, see, I was trying to make everything straight.
Yeah. Pete Bergstrom's going to test his this weekend too. I don't know if he's going to have any success.
And then I got my tank back there, 5.5 ounce tank.
Oh, that's plenty big. Yeah. You got YS fuel?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And then I know that since.
And this is 12.5 inches?
Yeah, and I've got a 13 and a 13 and an 8, and then I've got a full 14.
All right, let's go in the back and. Well, I wish you would have brought a gallon of coffee this morning.
I got a Coke. You want?
No, Coke. I want coffee.
Lug holes
Yeah, yeah.
Teeth aft, and it fit. It bolted right in. I could have put a shim on the thrust bonnet to get it out past the.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it fits where a Tiger 60 goes relatively. Pete Bergstrom said the same thing.
Yeah.
I got the header ordered for this. It didn't come in yet. You know, the header that wraps around and goes down behind the engine.
You're okay. Meaning, you want to have something running internally.
Main thing is the glow plug tight?
Yeah, believe me. Okay, so I know when this is all the way forward, that means that it's open.
Yeah, forward is
And
open.
according to the needle is set at 2.5 open.
Okay.
So if I go
I turn it 20 times. 10 compression strokes on mine. That gets the pressure into the tank.
it's full open.
Put it right in the middle. Yeah, right in the middle, Stu. I like the way you have that set. That looks like it's going to work out well. That you can just move it. You know what, I can't get used to the glow plug being in the backlight. It's always awkward getting it on and off. He's got the glove. Starter?
It's cold. I don't know. You know how to do this.
Okay, you hold the plane.
Now that back plate's drilled out and all that. So just put enough pressure on
Yeah.
it so you don't bend the back plate. We'll see what happens.
Okay, so you put this on back compression. So it's back. Right? Alright, now something's not right or it's already started. Plug is not right. Okay. It doesn't take that long to start normally. Let's see if that'll clear it out. This is the part I gotta learn, is this setup. Let's flip it over. You got any of that lighter fluid?
Yeah.
It's cold, baby.
Nothing like a battery that's been charged to help you get the motor started. Oh, it is cold out behind that propeller, baby.
The test of all good stunt fly. This actually is our first cold day, but we're ready for Joe's first flight. Assuming he doesn't freeze to death yet. Now we went off the ground at 9,500. That looks like it's going to be too fast. Throttle is wide open. We're certainly not going to run it wide open. little tricky stuff. I'm hoping Ron is going to be here later. Ron is a guy that, again, I don't know if I mentioned, he's real knowledgeable about these motors. Has offered to lend us his assistance, and we'll take all we can get. All right, so the next, what we know now is we're going to go down maybe to 9200, 9300. He's got a 12.5-inch diameter prop, a 14.5 cut down. First flight. So we have an initial gut reaction from looking at it, and obviously any motor in a cold air is going to run like a bear. This one's exceptional. This really ran like a bear. First thing you're going to open it, I want to record this. So you're going to open a handle up. Now the reason Joe's opening a handle up when this plane had, what did it have, a 60 or a pipe? I don't remember. 60, okay. Now you got more weight in the nose, so you want to open a handle spacing up as the first trim. And you also got, I'm even forgetting, you got a metal spinner on there.
Even if I would turn the 14-inch diameter at 8,600 RPM.
Well, you could try. You got gear clearance on that. On mine, I didn't have gear. The first day I was running all 12-inch props.
Okay, so the first thing I want to do is...
And 12 inch isn't enough for that YS. It's... Yeah, I would open it up at least... Yeah, yeah. Oh, you got a long way to go. Go 2 notches on each side.
That's all?
You got it asymmetrical or is it symmetrical?
It's right on. It's pretty good.
Open it 2 on each side. Well, I got plenty of those crimps. Anyway, that's the first of the trim changes. And by the time he's done with that and reset it.
Yeah, for me it probably is like 5 flights to get neutral again.
Now the next flight, we have something funky going on here with the tank, and I'm not sure what. We may have a pinhole in that tubing or something, I'm not sure. We got it running a lot slower, but I think what's going to work better is de-pitching the prop and running the motor harder. The motor doesn't want to run this slow. Happened after 4 or 5 flights, Joe's carburetor adjuster loosened up, and we really don't have a carburetor adjuster on it anymore. So he's going to have to do, and one of 2 things, he's also going to have to make up a little bit of a tank shim. It seems like it's leaner, the same as the OS. The tank has to go pretty far away from the mounts. Now I want to know the truth. How far off the ground do you think Joe had a crazy pull out here? I don't even know what maneuver you were doing.
The landing gear.
I heard the wheels hit the ground and nothing happened. Did you guys see it at the other circle?
I see it.
Oh man. They ought to change the name of this plane to Mr. Excitement here. Mr. October. Mr. Freeze your ass off at the field. Woo-wee. All right, so we're in the middle of what happened is the throttle adjuster is non-functional now. We got it wired wide open with some wire. And the only speed control we're going to have now is to change the prop, which he's got a slew of props.
Do you think that would be additional load, a little bit more load than that?
You bet. But you bet. Try each one. Just go right through them. Anyway, as I've done in the past, you just got to go through the props. See which one is going to give you what you're looking for. Found up with Rev Up props. Noel Drindak measured up 2 dozen of them. Half of them were 4-inch, half were 4.5, and some had 4.5 and 4.0 on the same prop. So you just basically have to go fly the prop and see and mark it. As I guess Joe has done with these, he's got all little codes and barcodes and stuff on them. prop is the 14.5, but I don't know that the engine, because he can't get the tank shimmed on inverted maneuvers, it's going to sag. I just have it, yeah, see, as soon as it's inverted, I don't like that. He has the same problem we had with Tradition. See, it wants to go dead lean and inverted, and that's not going to change until that tank is significantly up. And this is even worse, he's got a much larger tank. You have to take into account that once that tank isn't running, too much prop load. This is a full 14. We just wanted to see, and that basically is definitely going to be too much. Definitely have reached the part of the day where we're not going to learn anything else till Joe gets the tank, the ability to shim. And I thought that was one of the problems we were going to run into. You got to be able to get that tank way off the mounts. And so it's back to the Max 70 with Mike. Seems to be one of his favorite toys here. Can't find the wind. We're already in hurricane goodbye. Day's going to end early here today. The wind's getting really crazy. It comes around at all different angles now. But looks like we finally, after 10 years, have this shim worked out half decent anyway. Anyway, this is the only way I know of to really learn, is to just go out and do it, fly in the crappy air, and boy, we're not missing out on any air today. Part of the day where it really is counterproductive to even be out here. The daredevil part of the day. Anyway, Joe really likes the Max 70. And I don't know, as we're learning, I just can't wait to get my hands on that laser and see how that compares. But the Max 70 certainly has, with the tank shimmed right, really has me won over anyway. And I'm just sure if you could see the flag, wow, you can hear the wind blowing here. I don't know if we're doing the right thing pushing this.
Little saggy.
Yeah, it's saggy. Saggy and baggy. Anyway, we had fun even though the air is against us. We just can't seem to catch a break here with this air. Maybe time to head back to the shop. Quit while we're ahead. Daring the wind gods to give them a good whipping.
Get a shot of these two YS's just for the hell of it.
Mike's got his 1991 Windy Tune Pipe Super Tiger 60 here.
Yep.
Challenging the wind gods for the last time. Oh no. No. He doesn't like to even think about that possibility, huh?
There'd be nothing cutesy-tootsy going on here.
No tootsies. S's.
History here, huh?
YS's. Now I like my gut feeling from about 3 gallons of fuel of testing is I like the Max 70 better. And I'm looking forward even more to seeing that Laser 70. The Brodak Dope Candy Apple Test Plane. You got the black battery?
Yeah, we probably wore the battery out. YS.
Yeah, poor YS's. They're rough on batteries. Give it a prime, baby. Prime it. Look at this. Boy, what a Chinese fire drill this is.
Just make sure you run your lines out because you can pull them up about 2 feet.
Watch your fingers now, baby. Oh! Oh, it hurts so bad. Now, I'm really losing a lot of respect for Mike for flying when the conditions are this bad. My good plane is home in bed with the blanket and a hot water bottle on it. Nice sound, huh, Joe?
That's a custom pipe.
Yeah, that's custom. I made this just like the 91 pipe. Oh, that air, look, now he's going to bail out. Goodbye. I'm sorry I took this flight. The wind is blowing above 45. Oh, but I'll go inverted. Nobody will know I punked out on the round loops. We know, Mike. Anyway. He's doing the shimmy shake here, yeah. Ah, this field is unbelievable. Starting next week, we'll be back at the good field. Look at this. Run back. Run, you sucker, run. As soon as you get above 45 degrees, boy, it comes to get you. The biggest thing that we learned today, and I mean it was a significant thing, is that the tank, if you're going to do a YS, the tank has to be shimmed like the Max, way off the mounts, and that seems to hold consistent for all 4 strokes. Even though the YS is a very powerful engine, it seems like a little bit on the finicky side for my tastes. I kind of like things that are a little less finicky. But I love that YS70, that OS Max 70. Just when you fly them back to back on the same day, you come away with the impression that the Max 70 is the one that's going to wind up in a Typhoon or the Laser. And one of the things I remember from years ago, and I think it's true, there's just no substitute for making a motor bigger. It always gets friendlier. It always gets to where it's easier to needle. Just like all the PA people have found over the years, they've gone from 40 to 50 to 60 to 65. Well, we're gonna kind of say the same thing about this. The 53 is good, but the 70 is going to be friendlier and easier to tune, and possibly if we had a test plane big enough for the 91, and I don't know that we're never going to try that. These are Bob Dixon's motors and Don Dixon's motor. Everybody's motor that I have here is a Dixon motor. It's unbelievable. But anyway, it's been a good day. Mike is tempting the wind gods here. And I'll bet he's sorry he's taking this flight. He's getting whacked. Boy, you're right, Windy. I wish we were in the diner now having warm coffee and bagels. It's cold, it's wet, and I better not tear out the gear landing on this field. Anyway, it is bumpy. Ooh. This thing has some motor run. Got some run, huh, Joe? Kind of like it myself. I liked it in 91. I love it now. Tiger 60, and this is one of those really special Windy custom pipes.
The one he should have used for the kit. Because it's got big enough wings that it can be used.
How big is this? 36 inch?
No, more.
It looks like a bigger, more, 40.
It's probably closer to about 42, 44. We're not getting...
This weekend is the scale contest here, and we're going to be up in Massachusetts, the stunt meet. Now, we opened up today's mail. I wish I had these this morning. These are from John Lowry. These are his new version of the Merlin glow plug. We're going to be testing these in a week to come. Hey, if anybody interested in this, just give John Lowry a call or an email. Get a couple of samples of these. We'll test these out. He makes a 4-stroke, an idle bar, and a standard. Now this time of year, everything, weather, air, everything is very unpredictable. And I only have really about an hour here today. Not a long time anyway. He goes, guess what, guys? Today is Karen's birthday. And what I'm planning is a little surprise to run up to her job. In fact, I see the air is already moving, which usually means about 10 minutes from now the day is going to be over. But anyway, I'll use whatever I can. Now she takes her lunch hour about 1 o'clock. So what we're going to do, I bought her this balloon. Let me just set the stage here. This morning I purposely didn't give her a card, and I said, oh man, a card? I didn't get the money for a card, you know. But she's got this big giant doll coming. I got her a card, of course. Now let me tell you something, this is really, really funny. I know guys like Don Dixon will appreciate this. I've known my wife for 11 years, and she's never, ever even considered once going on a motorcycle. And yesterday, it was such a nice day. She says, why don't we take a motorcycle ride? It's the first time in 11 years, so now everybody at work has been calling her the biker chick. Wendy's biker chick. Smart I am. Last time I bought her a balloon, she had a get well balloon or something. I told the guy I don't need to wait on the end of it because I wouldn't be dumb enough to let it go. I walk out of the store, guess I let it go. Of course I had to go back and buy another one, but so today, lesson number 1, if you're 4-stroke, and get that weight on a balloon, because if you like Wendy and you run into your wife's job, we're going to try to surprise her, and she hates being, see, the reason she hates me going to her job is because I'm always dressed like a bum, and I always go there right after flying or something. Anyway, we're going to try to get a couple flights. I got a couple hours here to kill before it's actually the big birthday scenario. Elliot left a message on my machine this morning that the laser, he's got 2 of them. He's going to mail me one. Has already left England, so possibly before long we'll have it. Usually that's about 8-10 days to get here from the UK, but we have one more contest coming up in Massachusetts, and I'll spend more time with this at a time when possibly we have some bad air to fight through, but I'd like to, on a day like today, I have some different fuel to try. I have some 15% fuel that's half YS fuel and half GMA fuel. I just feel like there's something very significant here. When I'm running this big prop, and this is a full 4, you can see how big that is, full 14.5, it really responds to the nitro well. Now a lot of the 2 cycles don't, they just run hot, or they run funny, or they get overpowering. This just seems to get to be more and more of a bulldozer the more nitro I can put in there. Thing too, even with 15% Power Master, which is the 4-cycle fuel, it runs well on that. I don't know why they say not to, probably because there's lower oil content, but it ran well. In fact, at that contest weekend that we just had at the Newfield, we used that 15% Power Master 4-stroke fuel. But I have a bunch of, I think I got 3 gallons left of the YS fuel, and that's 20%. And the fuel that I'm normally using is GMA 10, so what I'll in effect have is some in-between 15% fuel with a little more oil and 4-stroke fuel, and that's what I want to try today. Other thing too, with a 2-cycle, using 6 or 7 ounces of fuel, sometimes more, and you up the nitro, all of a sudden you need 8 or 9 ounces of fuel. With this, when you up the nitro, you need 4 1/4 ounces of fuel, so it makes a big difference. It's certainly something that is a little bit of an advantage that you can pump that nitro through there. The only thing is, remember, boy, don't ever get that fuel near paint. And you can see the 1 or 2 times we've had it backfire on 15% fuel, it's pretty much taking the fuel right off, the paint right off the nose. So, like any event where you use high nitro fuel, you've got to really be careful, and no matter what finish you use, you've got to really protect the finish with wax and cleaning it off. I have that other header to try today that's never been on a plane. This might be a day we'll get an hour or 2. We can switch the header if my test pilot, my illustrious test pilot, ever gets here. We'll find out. If not, I'll have to do all the flying myself. The thing I always want to do is get a square 1 flight where it's all the things that were set from the previous day, and then start my experimenting for the day. Reason for a square one flight before you go making any changes, it's pretty obvious. What can really happen, a lot of times the day before it'd be, so let's say a real nice day, the air is real nice, you get to the field and you change something and all of a sudden it isn't the thing that you've changed. For instance, if you've changed a prop, that isn't what made the performance go up or down, it's the fact the air is different. So it's real critical to me, especially in the air conditions we have right now, the fall East Coast air here, it can go from a beautiful day to you got to hold the plane on the ground in a matter of minutes. So square one flight first. Now this fuel just seems to run a little bit harder and a little bit faster than the 15% Power Master, which is 15% oil. This now is a little over 20% oil. It's actually 21% oil and 15% nitro. It gives a little bit faster of a run. I still get, I think I had 12 laps after the pattern, but really, I hate to fine tune it on a day like today where the air is so unpredictable. I can't stay in one spot, so, and I just like to get some balance points with the fuel, and if I want to go a little faster or slower, I can just adjust the carburetor. But for that speed, for the conditions here where it's swirling and it's moving on every maneuver, that seems to be about as close as I can get it. Final thing, of course, if I want to go even slower, once I fall off the throttle adjustment, and let's say the throttle adjustment is like, let's pretend you had a yardstick. The throttle adjustment is inches and half inches, and the props are feet. So once I get beyond, in other words, I don't want to run the motor so hard or so soft that I'm not in the speed range I like. What I do is when I get to the slowest end of this, and the throttle is then even more than half shut, then I just go to the next lower pitch prop, and that'll usually get me a couple of tenths more, and I can get back into where the motors were happy. Time you want to get a feeling for just how powerful a motor is relative to another one, well, in this case, what I'm trying to compare is 2-cycle engines to 4-cycle. Not a good, very fair comparison, because you couldn't put a 2-cycle prop on a 4-cycle, but the 70 and the 14.5 to all different relative diameters from 13 to 14, and we have them all, almost all of them, except for the ones we broke. That seems to be a real nice combination, somewhere around a 4 or 4.5 ounce tank shimmed way off the mounts. And what I'm getting at here is this pretty much anybody could just go buy this off the shelf, stick it in a plane that was tail heavy, and we're going to get another test plane this weekend, I think. Well, we'll see if Midgley wants to part with the Yellow Cardinal. We'll have another one, because we have another 52 coming, a Max. And I want to go back and forth, but I'm still, see, as much as I like to test the smaller motors, I think the big advantage in this, if there is an advantage, or a thing that makes it kind of bulletproof or idiot-proof or whatever, is having the big displacement motor not working as hard as it has to, having it in that, like, more or less a cruise range where it's not working hard.
I did, I took about a half a gallon of that other fuel, flew it out. A couple of things that I didn't like was it was running short at the end of the pattern. In fact, the last couple of flights, it was getting real exciting, the last couple of maneuvers. But it gave me a chance to try it, and it convinced myself that, well, we have the two choices, the 15% Power Master where it runs somewhere in between, and for just flying around the field here, the 10% GMA fuel. What's nice about it, it has the extra oil in it. I kind of always like the extra oil. And what I found, like with all the Power Master fuels, it's totally consistent. You don't get where 1 gallon's, you've got to change the motor run or something like that. Real consistent. Now the only thing I forgot to do when I switched over, and I didn't record that flight, it was kind of funny, is I forgot to re-needle it. It goes in about 3 clicks from the 15% down to the 15. It's really 15 down to this. And I assume the difference is only because of the nitro, even though the oil content is different. Need to ask George about that. Okay, so we had a nice little session. Giant stadium right up in front of us. Now what we're going to do, we're going to sneak up on Karen. She doesn't know we're coming. And we're going to sneak up and give her her birthday balloon. New York skyline just ahead of us. This means we're coming up to Secaucus. Now the town of Secaucus is right by Meadowlands, right by the stadium. Giant stadium. The next town over, Retrofit on one side, Secaucus on the other side. Okay, now our office is locked. They're out to lunch. This is the way I planned it, so I'm going to leave the balloon here and see if I can catch them when they come in. I'll hide in the bathroom here. I don't know if this is going to work. See on the envelope it says BC, that's for Biker Chick. Finally, after 10 years, 11 years, she goes for a ride with me. Anyway, let's see. They're still out to lunch, so I've timed this perfectly for my scam. I just got to hide in a closet here. It's unbelievable I can pull stuff like this. Let them arriving. Ah! Listen, listen, Judy, I was going to take you guys out. I know it's a bar. I was going to take you guys out for steak dinner.
Yeah, right.
I got here 1 second too late.
Oh.
1 second.
No, Judy was taking me out.
I left the flying field. I could have got extra flights.
You need to go over there and picture her coming out of the Jeep with her short skirt.
I could have. Oh, she's got a short skirt on. Oh man, her image is shattered.
Shut that light off.
Happy birthday, right in the middle of the street, to you.
Happy birthday.
Over breakfast. Where's my card? Where's my card? Where's my card?
that.
So, she didn't know I was going to surprise her. I have a stripper upstairs waiting for her. You'll be there too, huh? Too bad I'm the
Just
stripper.
missed Darlene. She was with us.
Oh, Darlene was here too? Yeah. This is hard to make. Ah, she took the balloon in. Ah! Where's hope?
What's the surprise? That's why I wasn't going to say.
Wow!
You didn't have to say.
Ah, Karen! I left the flying field. I could have had extra flight.
Oh!
Oh, look! She got a balloon. Happy birthday to you.
Put the
See the card. Show the card to Don Dixon. Open up. Don Dixon's picture's inside. There's Maggie. Look at this, Maggie. Oh my God, Maggie. Is he the greatest husband in the world or what? I mean, nobody even comes close. Third place. Fifth place. It really was a good scam, but the problem is I parked the car about 2 miles away. I'm probably going to lose another hour of quality flying time. I can't believe I parked this far away so she wouldn't see the car. Back to the shop. On today's mail, got some nice pictures from our good friend, Jack Young. He always supplies me with a nice set of pictures every time he orders something. This is Bob Brook and his Cardinal VF-46 tune pipe ship. Hey, some wild paint job there. And he's got some pictures from the Bob Palmer meet.
This weekend, of course, is our Massachusetts meet. Should get some, well, some good footage, I hope, and get some more test pilots on these ships. It's old Jack Young's latest rendition of the Strega. Pretty exotic paint job there, Jack. Gordon Delaney's twin. We have a lot of footage of this from the Pasco, the 80, don't even know what year it was, 88, 89 Nats. Quite a ship, and Gordon, of course, quite a builder. This is a, by the way, a take-apart plane. All comes apart. Norm Whittle's ship. Now he says this is something unusual here, that he covered the plane with dope and tissue and then put monocoat on top of the dope and tissue for strength. Never heard of that being done before by Norm Whittle. We really appreciate the pictures. Thanks a lot. It's supposed to rain the next couple of days, so we're going to try to get a few flights in with Rich Jacobone before the rain comes. We have a couple more things to test on our old tradition Max 70 before we go away to this contest. Anyway, I'd like to get a couple of props tested and maybe get some flights on a new header that we just have. Email also today that Walt Brownell is kind of excited about doing up a Typhoon. He's of course already got 4-cycle power plants, so hey Walt, we'll send you, as soon as Elliot's done with the rough sketches, we'll send you a set of the plans, and if we can help you out with some of the molded parts or a canopy or whatever, hey, we're more than glad to do it. Multiple Typhoons. Okay, there's Maggie. We got to check Maggie before we go out flying. Make sure all the fish are fed. Make sure everybody's happy. Hey fish, stay underwater today if it rains so you don't get wet. How convenient is this? Weekdays at our new field. Rich is supposed to meet me here. You open the door of the car, take out the tools, take out the plane, and we got one tourist down there. We're going to have to just be careful we don't have an altercation with him. But we're pretty much ready to go. And boy, it looks like, well, it's breezy, but looks like we're going to get some flights here. And again, thanks to Rich Jack. Look at the seagulls out here. Look at this. No matter where we go, there has to be animals. No matter where I go, there's deer and foxes and turtles and... Anyway, looks like we'll get a few flights before the rain comes. You know, one of the things a lot of people don't understand, the whole reason for developing this stuff and things like the YS, now I know Pete Bergstrom and Charles Mackey are working on YS's right now. But the thing is to try to help each other learn. Now some of these people may have better luck than I have. Maybe I'll have better luck than they have. I don't know. But if we share the information, and certainly that thing that Bob Zambelli has going is growing by leaps and bounds. Every day new people get added to it. Now one of the things I started last night, I started watching Lyle Lawson's, the name of the video is No Secrets, and shows how to build a pylon racer. And boy, there's a lot of little tips and tricks we're going to be able to learn from Lyle. I want to thank him again for basically sharing it. He's kind of a windy guy, a share everything guy. I don't know if that's the right, or if I'm a Lyle guy, I don't know. Anyway, Lyle and I have exchanged quite a few videos, and he really has been helpful. He's got lots of ideas we're going to be incorporating into the Typhoon. And if anybody's interested in a set of those videos, you can just call Lyle Larson up and, you know, negotiate your own deal with him. He seems real willing to share information, and he is possibly the biggest composite kit builder in the world that I know of. And his planes, he gave us that interview at the Nats, they were really something. Now, here's my point. We're watching Rich fly. This is a point that goes by a lot of people. Well, why do you spend the second half of the year after the Nats just fiddling around and fooling around? Well, right here you have the reason. Rich has a setup that he put in this plane and basically in the other Strega that's kind of pre-tuned. I call it pre-tuned. Now, if he had just bought the motor and had no idea about, you know, what prop to put on, what glow plug, what fuel, well, a lot of times, and to go back
into the early, I don't know, let's go back to the early 90s when guys were fooling with small displacement pipe motors. 3/4 of them would get a lean run, the other quarter would run out of fuel. A few really knowledgeable people got them to work, but that's not the case now. The case now is if you buy a jet and buy the pipe, and possibly even spring for a couple of videos, you're going to have it right just like Rich the first time. You look at Mike Kajeski's plane, he's got the Super Tiger 60 on a pipe. That is an idiot-proof setup. That is turnkey stunt. The prop is right, the fuel is right, the plug is right. Now, the thing that we're trying to do is do the same thing for 4-strokes. And we haven't tested the little Max 52 yet, and we haven't tested the laser, that's coming. But there's enough people testing the YS's now. Charles Mackey's testing them, Pete Bergstrom's testing them, Big Art is testing them with Pete. Well, the aggregate of everybody's knowledge, as long as we share it, it's going to happen real quick. It's going to happen just a lot quicker than in the beginning of the tuned pipe program when guys really weren't sharing things on the internet like Zambelli is. Or you'd have a problem and the first thing you do is roast the motor and have to buy a piston and liner. Then you'd find out, well, gee whiz, that pipe isn't meant for that motor or that prop doesn't fit. You know, everything was a mystery. Well, right now, what we're hoping to have, and that's the purpose of doing this, and the purpose of sharing it both on video and on the internet on Zambelli's list, is to get basically what Rich Jacobone has here. You buy the stuff, bolt in the plane, pre-tuned. And I hope ultimately we're going to have that with the stuff we're working on with the laser and Tradition. It's pouring rain. Well, pouring, it's raining. And we're so close, you don't even have to wrap this stuff up. This is just so convenient being here. So convenient, boy. What a place to fly. Just hope the rain stops. Some days you just get rained on. What I wanted to do today is finalize this tank shim and try this header. The next session, we probably have 1 or 2 more sessions before we can go up to mast. This header, now Brian is going to look at getting a tap, so we could possibly put this little muffler here, but of course we'd like to make it that we could make a little carbon fiber muffler and put it inside the body. That may or may not be appropriate. We want to see how this is going to work out first. So for the next time we get to test it, and these things are all available right from the local hobby shop. You don't even have to special order them. That'll be the next thing we'll test, and we'll test with this. Now these, because of the 4-cycle exhaust being hotter, these generally last about 2 gallons of fuel, and then right around here they start melting. We're looking for some aluminum. Maybe we'll get Jim Tishy to put a little bend in this. Anybody have a tubing bender? That'd be nice. It's really, these things are not a whole lot louder without the muffler with these straight pipes. And I'm hoping eventually, of course, in the Typhoon, the body will be out here. I can maybe bend some of that back, put the muffler back in here. We got a lot of nice choices with this system. And now all we need is a day that it isn't raining. Now, after watching some of these Lyle Larson videos, I can guarantee you this is one of the nicest, best that I've ever seen. He really covers everything. And of course we had a nice time with him at the Nats. But having him help us, I mean, while we're developing things, having his help is a key thing. And you can get Lyle Larson. You want to get a set of these videos, what I would suggest you do is just give a call to Lyle Larson. He really knows his stuff. He's been on the FAI teams and whatever. Even though it's a pylon racing thing, the real reality is a lot of the things, especially the paint stuff, is stuff we can use.
Almost a 2.5-year-old airplane. It's got 200-some flights on it.
Really good information, well worth the money.
Try to make it identical to this one.
Well, today we're only going to have about an hour or so, but I want to test this header. This is the last of the 3 that we have. And the one we still haven't gotten, because they've been out of stock, they make a flexible one that looks like the sink pipe that you can snake in around or whatever.
The first one I tested was really appropriate, but the little rubber thing kept melting off the back of it, so I'm not too crazy about that. This one, of course, we've had. It's never been run yet. We don't have the other one. We'll probably have it next week. But I heard something really neat. Sato has a 72 that's more than 3 ounces lighter than this motor now. I'm just picturing for Strega. The Strega is not real nose heavy and not real tail heavy. I'm not so sure Karen's not going to be excited about the fact I may want a Sato for Christmas. Anyway, let's get this running. Yeah, I'm excited. It looks like we even have a little bit of air. Well, at this place you never know if you have any air. First obvious thing is this header is a little bit louder. Well, I would classify it as, 10-20% louder. Not objectionable though. Not anywhere near what a loud 2-cycle is. Nothing like a tongue muffler, say. But the problem is, one of the problems is the mileage. We've knocked about a minute off the run time by going from the muffler to this header. So we either have to run the motor leaner here or come up with some other combination, because now with this header we're running tight on fuel. So we're going to do a little experimenting with fuel and props, try to come up with, well, one thing really big and positive is with this header on the plane has a lot more, and I mean a lot more corner, because that muffler is about 1.25 ounces, and that's not even on the plane now. So we've, again, lightened up the nose by, anytime you take 1 ounce, 1.25 ounces out of the nose, you can expect more corner. Now these little guys, they usually last a very short time. In fact, we're going to try to get Jim Tishy. If we use one of these type of headers, these snake-in headers, or if we make our own, possibly Warren Walker could do a little welding, and we could get the muffler. I don't want the muffler sticking out at an angle, which I guess is okay on an RC plane. I'd like it tucked in the body if possible. Going through all our parts and all the possible combinations we can come up with here in the limited time we have today. Well, hallelujah. Looks like we're going to get more than one flight today. Well, you never know with the air around here, though. The air, the geese, whatever. Roughly a 1/2 gallon of fuel through this. And I guess the only negative thing about it, I could live with the noise on this. The noise isn't really my major concern. The fact is that the fuel consumption has gone up by an amount that I guess it really would be appropriate to put a bigger tank in here, but then we kind of defeat some of the purpose. I like having that 4-ounce tank in there. So I guess what I'm going to wind up doing is at the end of the day, well, I'm going to fly out today and just see, for instance, if I can get the mileage back using 5% fuel, that would be one thing. But then usually you lose some of the needle range. Now this has a nice wide needle range. One of the things about it is it's real friendly, and I don't want to trade that away. Keep in mind these accessory wide open exhaust systems, while they may have some benefit appearance-wise, the muffler still gives you about an extra minute of runtime. It's running out of fuel about a minute sooner with the open pipe. And I guess that's very predictable. For the rest of the time of the test session, I'm going to kind of abandon this header, put the stock muffler back on. First off, I like the mileage a little bit better. I like having that extra minute. I don't want to retrofit a bigger tank. And I actually do like the quiet sound of the stock muffler. And the nice thing is it comes with the engine, so that's one thing we're going to keep in mind for the future, is that these straight headers really do eat up a lot of extra fuel. Obviously they make more power, but in this case that's not something we really need. I'm glad I did the test. I'm glad I spent the better part of a day here. Actually, it's a throwaway day because the air is so bad, but it was a very eye-opening thing, and I need to keep that in mind, that one of the reasons, possibly one of the reasons the 4 cycles get good mileage is the mufflers really contribute to that. This may be, see, this is the part of it I don't know. This may be an untuned or a tuned length that just tends to kill the mileage. I don't know. I would like to in the future try making a little muffler for out at the back, or putting a muffler in the body or whatever. But for right now, we certainly can live with the little muffler sticking out the side of the body. And another thing that happens with that, the motor it just seems to run a little more consistent with this wide open pipe. There's spots in the pattern where it just gets overpowering, and I don't like that either. That's not one of the things I want to have. I want that totally smooth run through the whole pattern if I possibly can have it. Good experiment, and not a day wasted, that's for sure. It really has worked out well is this Pro Seal for sealing up. Now you can see there's hardly a drop of oil anywhere on here after maybe a little more than half a gallon of testing. Anytime you break this joint, it's always a good idea to just clean it out with some alcohol and a Q-tip or whatever. Put some of this in, let it dry 5 or 10 minutes, and reinstall the header or the muffler. See, a day is never wasted. Even when you learn something like this, you can put this in your bank. Now, if we were going to purpose build a plane, we'd put a 5-ounce tank in it, but that's not what we're doing right now. We just want to test. I want to see how far I can squeeze a 4-ounce tank, because I think that's ultimately going to be some kind of a little advantage. The fact that I don't have to carry the tank, carry the fuel, buy the fuel. That's one of the things. I don't want to have a 4-stroke that uses 9 ounces of fuel. I don't want to abandon that yet. I almost forgot, inside my toolbox is a picture of this plane at the 87 team trials that Win Paul took. Look at this. How long ago that was. Look at that young face. Anyway, we've got everything learned. You don't try anything, you never learn anything. A little bit of that stuff in there, a little bit on the threads, and just let it gel up about 5-10 minutes. Out in the sun here, it dries right up. And then that makes a real nice seal at, I guess one tube would pretty much last a lifetime. A good tip, by the way, I got this from Rich Peabody. It's probably available, and it's a good tip. It's probably a good tip even for 2-strokes. Anyway, see you on the next tape. Please share the tapes. We're going to continue a little bit of today with some prop testing. Try to get ready for this big contest coming up in Wentham, Massachusetts. See you there. So really want to thank again Lyle Larson.